What's up, fellas? Welcome to a brand new episode of The Sports Student. My name is Wendell Epps, aka The Sports Student. In today's podcast, I'll be interviewing Gabby Hajduk. Gabby is currently a rising senior at the University of Illinois and has experience working as a sports editor and broadcaster at her school. And in this podcast, she'll talk about what it's been like getting those experiences at such a young age, and also talk about the importance of developing your own craft within the sports media industry at a young age. So sit back, relax, enjoy the podcast, and without further ado, this is a sports student interview with Gabby Hajduk. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm delighted to be joined by Gabby Hajduk. Gabby, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you doing, and how's your summer been going?
It's good. I'm in Champaign right now. I've stayed here over the summer. It's hot, which I think it's hot everywhere right now. But yeah, other than that, summer's been good. I've just been kind of hanging out, recovering from a pretty rough school year, I would say, which I feel like most of us probably felt that this year. I was just telling you this, like my first time back on Zoom in like a couple months. So it's definitely giving me some flashbacks, but I think I can make it through.
Yeah, you got this. You got this. For
Thank
sure. You. Okay, so first thing first, if you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you got started, where you are now in your sports media career.
Yeah, so I go to University of Illinois. I'm about to be a senior, which feels really crazy to me because I swear I just started freshman year. And I think that's what everybody says, but like you don't feel it until you're there. And I'm highly considering grad school now, which, whatever. We'll see if we get there. But I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, came down here to University of Illinois. I was always a big U of I fan growing up because my dad went here. But now I've been doing sports journalism here for like about 3 years now. So I've kind of taken off like my fan side and have obviously had to become a reporter, which has been, a really interesting transition. But yeah, I started my freshman year at our campus newspaper, the Daily Illini. I started covering women's golf, and I know nothing about golf. I've never played golf. I'm really bad at golf. But it was a really cool way to start out because I feel like I learned so much just about a sport I didn't know. And I think it's kind of better that way to get thrown into the fire. And then I was able to cover women's basketball and softball my freshman year as well. And then I was able to cover men's basketball my sophomore year, which was so cool. That was Io DeSumu's sophomore year. We're the same age. And so they were kind of starting to get there. COVID happened. They were supposed to make the tournament for the first time in forever. And then they don't. And then I actually took the sports editor job at the Daily Illini my junior year, so this past year, and got to cover their unfortunate and short-lived tournament run. But it was super cool. I covered football and basketball this past year, and that's been my main thing is just writing. And then I've done some radio, some podcasting, some broadcasting stuff, kind of run through it all. And now I'm getting ready to finish things out this year.
That's very cool. I mean, it seems like you've done a lot already in your college career. I mean, how cool has that been to get all those unique opportunities?
It's been really cool. I think obviously like Illinois doesn't have a ginormous journalism program, or it's not like well-known like Mizzou or, Northwestern, things like that. But it's a pretty small program within a really big college, which you kind of get the best of both worlds. And it leads to a lot of opportunities. Like it's still a Big Ten university, Big Ten athletics. And so I obviously want to go into sports media. So that's, huge for me. So I think since it is a smaller program, you get a lot of opportunities because there's just not as many people to fulfill those opportunities. And honestly, I would never go anywhere else just because I've gotten so many opportunities. Like I've been to March Madness already. It's been so cool. I drove up to Wisconsin for Illinois' first football game last year. Like I've kind of gotten to see it all in my college career, which is super cool, but also a little scary because it's like, okay, now what else do I have to do, after college? But I think it's been a blessing just to have all these opportunities and kind of put my foot in like every little avenue of journalism. Like I said, like I've done radio, podcasting, broadcasting. So it's like, I've kind of been able to weed through what I like and what I don't like as a college student, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I want to know, like, through all your time so far, Illinois, like, what has been the most memorable event that you've covered?
feel like the obvious is probably March Madness,
Yeah.
but I was also at this past basketball season. I was at the Illinois versus Michigan game up in Ann Arbor where Aya was out. He was hurt. And they beat Michigan, who was number 1 or number 2 at the time in the country, by like 30 points. Like they blew them out on their home court, which rarely happens without their star player. Andre Curbelo, who is about to be a sophomore now, literally took over. It was so cool to watch. So definitely March Madness or that. I think March Madness is the obvious one. But that was a cool game too, just because from the beginning, like nobody thought they were going to win because Io's gone. You're playing one of the best teams in the country, and then your freshman just comes out and like annihilates everybody, annihilates some of like the best players in, college basketball. So I would say that's probably the top of the list.
That's awesome to hear. And I want to know, like, where did this love for like sports and sports media, where did it all start?
Yeah. So my parents were both like super into sports. My mom actually played tennis at Iowa when she was younger, which is like so cool. She won't talk about it because she's like, whatever, super humble, which is great. But she literally was Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Like she won state championships in high school. Like she was so good. And then my dad kind of played sports throughout his whole life too. So growing up, sports was just like what my parents put me into. And I played all the different sports. My dad's also from Pittsburgh. So we're big Pittsburgh Steelers, Pirates, and Penguins fans, which if anybody knows anything about Pittsburgh sports, like sports culture is the culture there. Like that's all they care about. So I kind of grew up with that mentality too. And then when I was old enough to kind of understand, like I would watch Steelers games with my dad, like Pirates games with my dad. And I don't know, I just fell in love with sports, watching sports, playing sports. And then English, I would say, was always like my better subject in school. So I just really loved to read and write. So I kind of like meshed those together once high school came around and I got to take a journalism class, and I was like, okay, I can like make a career out of something I really like, and not everybody gets to say that, So I kind of ran with it, and yeah, here we are.
That's awesome. I have to ask you, do you like writing essays because you write so much in sports? Is like essays like easy for you, or is it like, no, you still dread them?
Essays are easy. I would say like, I don't mind writing them, but now it's like journalism writing is such a different style.
Right.
It's like when you go to write your English essays, you're like, wait, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do anymore. Like, I'd say it's just so different, but it does come pretty easy because it's just another form of writing. You just format it differently.
Yeah, exactly. You're so passionate about it. Just comes natural. And how do you feel about the Steelers? What do you think they're going to do this season?
I don't know. I've been going back and forth on this. Part of me, if Big Ben can stay healthy, which is always a stretch now, he's getting up there. But I don't know, if he's on this new diet, he's lost weight. So if he could stay healthy, I think they could potentially win the division or at least get in the wild card spot. I know, obviously, they drafted Najee Harris, and I've already seen videos of him in training camp. He looks awesome. I mean, their defense is still one of the best in the league. They returned TJ Watt, who's arguably the best defensive player in the league right now. And then, you have your wide receivers, Juju, Chase. So I think it's a pretty well-balanced team if all the parts can stay healthy. And the biggest thing comes down to the offensive line because they're younger. And so I think if the offensive line can protect Ben, then they've got a good chance. I don't know. I think this is Ben's last good year, potentially good year. So I'm really hoping they like capitalize on it.
Yeah, that's true, because Big Ben won't be there forever. So just capitalizing kind of what you can is definitely going to be important.
I don't trust Mason Rudolph to come in and be the starter. So they better have a good draft plan in place. I don't really know. I don't trust that they have our backup quarterback. So they better draft a quarterback this next year.
That's for sure. Yeah, Steelers better start get scouting and all that good stuff.
Yeah, they can hire me. I'll do it if they don't want to do it themselves.
For sure. So I want to transition over and talk about a little bit about social media. because I feel like social media, like, especially we're both in college right now, social media is obviously a big part of our lives and pretty much every life of the college student. So I want to know for you, I'm going to ask you this question here. I want to see how you're going to answer this. What's your favorite social media platform that you also feel like provides the most benefits to people in the sports media industry? But what if you had to pick like one social media platform that you feel like is just not good for the sports media industry and you would be okay if it even didn't exist anymore? Which one would that be?
So I'll start with the first half of the question. So okay. I think Twitter is the best one, like hands down. Twitter is difficult though, because you do have a lot of people who don't necessarily know what they're talking about. Like obviously with social media, anybody can have a social media. So people just throw stuff out there. I think it's really about like who you follow. And if you're following professional journalists or, student journalists that are at the college, like it gets to be a struggle when fans kind of create these accounts and, think they have this inside information and they just don't. And that's okay. But then people kind of get that misconstrued with what's real and what's not. But I do think when you use Twitter the right way, like you can tweet out your stories, you can tweet out little snippets of quotes from, you could tweet out little live tweets about the games, which I think every journalist, every beat writer does, and I think that helps fans who, can't watch the game or just want some extra insight. Sports fans are crazy. Like we know that, like any sports fan wants all the information they can possibly have. They want all the inside information. And so I think Twitter is the best platform to provide that. And I also think, again, like with any social media, you can meet so many different people through Twitter. Like I've met friends through Twitter, like through the sports journalism world. And I just think it's a really good way to like branch out your following and even like branch out just your connections in general, which is so cool. I would say the one that doesn't really work would definitely be Snapchat. I think that's like a younger generation thing in general. And I think I don't know, like I've seen news organizations like try and be like, oh, follow us, like friend us on Snapchat and we'll take you live, which like, when you think about it could be cool because it's like, okay, you could see pictures and videos, but not all generations use Snapchat. And it's kind of just like inconvenient to work. Like, I don't know about you, but even just for like personal use, I don't really use Snapchat anymore.
Same here.
It was the thing in high school. And now it's kind of like, I feel like when news organizations try and like utilize Snapchat, they're just trying to like be hip and cool. And it's just like, no one wants to follow like a news organization on Snapchat. Like that's just not what you use it for. So I think that's kind of the one that was here for like a brief period of time and now it's just like dying out really quickly.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that about the Snapchat. Like, yeah. I've seen news organizations, they'll try and post stuff on Snapchat, but it just looks so much better when it's on somewhere like Twitter or Instagram or somewhere else.
Yeah, if you want videos, like Instagram's pretty good with the reels now and like IGTV, like you can do a lot more stuff on Instagram than you can do Snapchat. And so why try and use all of them when I feel like the main ones you just need are like Twitter and Instagram nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. I always find it funny, like Twitter, you just never know what you're going to get when you open that app,
Yeah, Twitter's an interesting place. That's what it really comes down to, who you follow and like what you surround yourself with on that platform. Because if you kind of start to, like I said, like deviate away from like the professionals and like the people who actually know stuff, then you kind of get these outlandish takes and fans just trying to have a hot take or, try and start an issue or something. So you really have to be careful with like what you're reading and what you're looking at on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes like with any social media platform or the internet in general. Like you just can't believe everything you see. But I want to know for you, I find it really cool, what you do, writing stories and like working as an editor. I want to know what's your process? Do you have like a normal process you use for every story you write, or it just kind of depends on the topic you're doing?
I would say half and half. Like it half depends on the topic, but I would say like most stories I write now are more like feature stories, not like just like the quick news stories or whatever. So I think what I always try and do is like look for a good anecdote to either lead with or incorporate. And I think you always need to like lead with the human face. And I think that comes with any type of story, whether it's sports news, like having that human face that someone can relate to at the beginning of the story kind of immediately draws them in. So I think that's what I try and focus on. And I think the other thing, it's the process starts like way before you even sit down to write the story. Like I think the true process starts with the interviews. And I think that comes down to like, sure, you have your list of questions that you're going to go in with. But for me, what I find best is, or when I get the best answers, when you listen to them give an answer and then ask them something about what they said in that answer. Because when they're talking, that's something that they're interested in or something they know about because they're speaking on it. So then if you play off that, you're going to get much better answers than if you just stick to your questions. And I think you can't go in with like a closed mind when you're interviewing. Like you might go in, ask the first question, and then throw out the rest of your questions and run with a whole different story or a whole different topic or something. Because I think you have to let your subject or subjects like have creative freedom to speak on what they want to speak of. Obviously, in the certain topic you're trying to write about. But sometimes you go in thinking it's going to be this angle, and then you ask that first or second question, and they take it a whole different angle. And I think that's when you get the best stuff because you get the most like passionate and informational answers for them. And then I think what I always try and do at end of interviews is like ask them, do you have anything else to add? Or, did I miss anything? And that's when you usually get that one quote you've been waiting for, and you get that anecdote, or you get that like super unique piece of information that you would have never known to ask about. And I think for me, like it's not necessarily about like when I sit down and write, it's more about when I'm doing the interview and when I'm talking to them. Because you could write a story 1,000 different ways, but if you don't have the right information or the right quotes, like it's not going to be a good story either way.
Yeah, I mean that's a really great point you make there. Like you never know what you're gonna get when you do interviews. Like with anybody, I have to ask you, what's the most memorable interview you've ever done so far?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. Oh my God, I've done so many interviews. Like trying to think about one. I don't even remember one specific interview. Oh, you know what? I do have a favorite. I wrote it. It's from my favorite story I've written. I wrote a pretty long piece on a baseball player here at U of I who kind of changed his whole mentality, changed his swing over quarantine last year when COVID first hit. And I interviewed him and his dad because his dad had played baseball professionally, and he was a big part of his change over quarantine. And just the way they both opened up about their like relationship over the years. Because I feel like sometimes parents and kids have a totally different view on like stories or just, things that have happened in their life, because obviously they're coming from two totally different perspectives. But they both were so in sync with each other on like how their relationship has evolved. Like, when they talked about when the player was younger, his dad was super hard on him, and just like that wasn't always the most effective way. And the player talked about that and how it helped him and hurt him. And then also the father talked about what he should have done differently and kind of like owning up to some of those mistakes. And you could definitely see like their relationship was really good now and like at a really good place. So I think those are my favorite interviews to do, just because again, it's rare when you have that parent-kid situation that you kind of have them in sync and you have them at both of an understanding of each other. And that's what I got. And it turned out to be a great story, and I was so happy with it. So yeah, that was my favorite. I for sure like talking to both of them was really awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that's like a very unique story. So being able to do something like that is extremely cool. I love that. So you being at Illinois, I want to know, describe like the scenery for me there with your program, with the school. How is it like going there?
Yeah, so it's obviously a big school. There's like 45 to 50,000 kids who go here. But it's nice. Like I said, like with the journalism program, that program's pretty small. So you get that like small school feel with your professors and the people who are also in the program, and it's like you kind of know everybody, which is really cool. but then you go outside that little program and you're at a huge Big Ten Division I school. Like, so you got the best of both worlds, which is awesome. I mean, I love the campus. It's like, I don't know, there's like one strip of on Green Street where I actually live. That's like all the restaurants and bars and like all that. And then you have like the main campus with classes. And I always say my favorite part of campus is the quad. And when you look at our quad, it's like a quad you would see in a movie. Like, it's just perfectly laid out. Like, it's always pretty. There's always so many people on it. It's just like, whenever I go sit down there, I'm like, okay, I just feel so at college. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like such a college student, which is such a nice feeling to have sometimes, because I feel like, especially in our industry, like you kind of get lost and you kind of feel like you're already in the real world and already a professional and an adult and everything. So that's my favorite thing to do, like, especially when school's going on, like, just go sit on the quad and everything kind of just like relaxes and calms itself down. So, I mean, I love this school. I don't think I would have ever, I don't think I would like go anywhere else if I did it over again. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of the best of both worlds for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned like still living your life like as a college student, because like that's what we both are. Yeah, we're both progressing towards the sports media industry like full time, but at the same time, taking time for yourself is obviously like very important for sure. So like, I want to know how do you balance it? Like the whole working as an editor and then also going to class and all that stuff. How is it like balancing those things?
Yeah. So I actually finished up sports editor this past March. So it was just a year. But this past year, or just in general, like I've been, doing this all 3 years I've been here.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is like, you have to understand your priorities. And like, for me, I've prioritized like work and, getting into this industry and like working really hard to kind of set myself up for a good job after college. And I think, everybody's different. So some people don't prioritize that. And some people, would rather, prioritize their social life or whatever it is, or a different job. Like, I kind of knew that from the beginning going into college that I was going to make this my main priority. And so I think you really have to understand what you're trying to get out of college. Like, are you here just to have fun? Are you here to kind of set yourself up for a job? Do you know you're not really going to use your degree and you're kind of going to go a different avenue? Like, so I think I've always known what my priority was going to be, but then you also do stuff to have fun. And I think the biggest thing is surrounding yourself with friends who share your same priorities. Because if you, have a whole group of friends that all they want to do is go out and party every night, you're going to feel left out. You're never going to feel included. You're never going to feel like you're actually with your friends. But when you surround yourself with people who also are, working really hard at whatever major they're in, then you guys can all go enjoy that social life together on the weekends, or, a random weeknight where you guys are all free. Like, so I think it really comes down to setting your priorities at the beginning and then surrounding yourself with people who share those same priorities to a certain extent.
Yeah, most definitely. It's important to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people, as you mentioned, and it only can help you in the long run and make you just a better person in general.
Exactly. I think it is really beneficial when you have people to like push you, but then also be like, okay, you need to chill for a second, like go enjoy something, like been doing this all day type of thing. And I think those are the friends that you really need to have. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like I work a lot, but I also make time to have fun. And that's the thing, like when you give yourself those opportunities to like go have fun and, just take the day off or kind of, take a break from whatever you're writing or working on, like then you're going to come back to your writing or come back to whatever you're doing in a much better mindset. Because if you're just sitting here all day, work on your laptop, like you're not going to do your best work because you're kind of just like forcing yourself to go through the motions instead of taking a break and then coming back when you really feel ready to like work.
Exactly. I want to know too, what do you like to do on an off day? You got an off day, nothing to do, no sports work. What are you playing? What do you like to do during those days?
I like to sleep for sure. I like to catch up on my sleep because I feel like this is like most college students, like my sleep schedule is just horrible. But after I sleep in and have my fun, I'd say, I don't know, I just like to spend time with friends. I like to be around people. I don't like I appreciate my alone time, but I don't like to be alone that much. Like, so usually me and my friends will just like go get food, go get coffee. I'm addicted to coffee. I actually work in a coffee shop like part-time, just make some extra money. So that's usually my go-to is like go get food with friends, go get coffee, or obviously if it's like a weekend, like I'll probably go out or, go somewhere with my friends, go to a bar, whatever, just hang out. I also do just really love watching sports in general. So like if any sports are on, I'll probably watch that. Especially if it's like Pittsburgh sports. Like you will not catch me missing a Steelers game ever. You will not catch me missing like a playoff Penguins game. The Pirates are so bad, I don't even watch them. But if they were ever good, I'll watch them too. But I mean, just any like big sporting event I love to watch. So that's usually what I like to do.
That's very cool. That all sounds like a lot of fun. So what classes have you been taking at Illinois that are related to like the whole sports journalism track?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm almost done. So I've taken a lot. I've taken some kind of just like ethics classes, kind of things you have to take. My freshman year, actually, I took a sports journalism class with my favorite professor of all time, Jean McDonald. Shout out Jean. She was so good at just introducing all of us to sports journalism. I actually met my two best friends and my roommate. They're now my roommates in that class. So I always say I'm like so thankful for that class. But then I don't know, I've done a lot of just news writing class, news editing classes where I learned kind of how to edit my own work and edit other people's work. And I think when you learn those editing skills, even if you don't ever want to be a copy editor or an editor, like having those skills in the back of your mind enhances your writing so much. Like after I took that class, I would like look at my writing. I'm like, oh my God, this is atrocious. Like all these missed commas or, whatever it is. But then this past year, I actually took my first TV class where I got to learn how to make packages and make VOs and VOSATs and all these different things. And it kind of introduced me to this whole new world of journalism, kind of the broadcast side. And it definitely kind of opened my eyes to potentially, making a career in that, or at least learning more about that to see if that's something I really want to do. Because, I think once you have those basic writing skills and reporting skills and just interviewing skills in general, you can really take those and put them in any type of journalism, whether it's radio, print, broadcast, like they really translate across the board. You just have to learn the technical things for each. But I think that's been my favorite class so far, actually, is the TV class. And I'm actually taking another one this semester. So I'm really excited for that.
That's awesome. They seem like great classes. And I'm glad you mentioned like having that variety when it comes to like knowing skills in the industry, because it'll only help, in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. No one wants someone who can just write or can just, produce a show. Like nowadays, all these platforms have all those things in one. And so they want you to kind of be able to do it all. So I think that's been my goal through college, is just to kind of learn a little bit about everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have to ask you, do you remember the first like story you ever wrote, and also like maybe like your first like broadcast, like in front of the camera or whatnot?
Yeah, I think the first story I ever wrote was a golf story on, I would say like the first main story, like just besides like a little recap and a preview for golf. I think the first main feature I did was on Crystal Wang and Corn Kamal Sukart. I might say her last name wrong, so I'm not gonna say it. But they call her Stang or Stang, I think. Two women's golfers. They were freshmen at the time, and they were really, really good, like incredible. And so I remember writing about them, and they were both international students, and it was just cool to see their journey. And I'm sure if I read that story now, which I will refuse to do, I never want to read that story because I would probably be so disgusted by my writing. So I'm never going to read that again. But it was cool to talk to them. And then I would say I did some sideline reporting for a program called Big Ten Network Student U, which it's just a bunch of student broadcasters kind of getting to broadcast their own games. Like we would do soccer, volleyball, women's basketball. So I remember I did sideline reporting for a volleyball match. It was my first time ever being in front of the camera. It was my freshman year. I had no business being in front of the camera. Like I was so scared because it's like you're doing these like live hits and everything, and like you can't mess up. Like it's live. If you mess up, you mess up. It was so nerve-wracking and I was so tense. Like I just remember people are probably watching like, oh my God, is she okay? Like I probably looked so scared. So I've definitely grown past that. And, now I'm definitely more comfortable in front of the camera, but it is weird, like looking back on those first times and being like, oh my gosh, like I really, I really did that. That was so bad. Or like, you see it, but it's also cool because then you get to see how much you've progressed and, you haven't stayed in the same place the last 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's the same way when I look back at like my old broadcast from like freshman year. I'm just like, wow, like so much has changed since then, So you can only get better though with the more reps you get. So definitely. I want to know for you, what's the end goal in the industry? What are you hoping to achieve in the sports media industry?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I don't know. I think I want to stay in sports. I don't see myself like kind of wavering from that, but I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. Like I said, I've kind of done it all and I really like everything. And so I think the end goal is just to be able to like tell important stories. I don't see myself as just being like a beat writer or, beat reporter, more power to those people because that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but I've always kind of thought of like writing a book or, writing some more like longer form stories. Like I love Miran Fader. I don't know if you ever read any of her stuff, but she's an incredible author and she actually just came out with her first book on Giannis actually, which I can't wait to order. But she just does like longer form stories for Sports Illustrated, I think, Bleacher Report. Like she's kind of jumped around and just telling like really important stories. I know she did a really long story on LaMelo Ball and when he was over in Australia. And I don't know, I just think it's not everyone, but a lot of sports fans just see athletes and coaches as just like entertainment. And there's so much more to them and there's so much more that people don't understand. And I think when you get to read those stories, you're like, oh wow, like I shouldn't be like, yelling at this athlete on my like while I'm watching him on TV. It's just like you learn so much about these athletes as people, and it kind of puts you in perspective. Like, okay, they're kind of just like me in some ways. And so that's always what I want to do is just be able to tell those stories and be able to open people's eyes to like what sports is really like, what athletes are really like, and it's not all like about money and things like that. So I don't know in what way I want to tell the stories, but I just know that's kind of what I want to do at the end of the day.
That's fantastic. And like with sports, there's so many stories out there,
Yeah.
you have a chance to like inspire, educate people. So it's amazing. I love that.
Thank you.
All right, Gabby. So I want to go ahead now and I want to end this interview with you asking you a couple rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. All right, let's do it. Okay, first question I have for you. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Mind reading.
Very cool. What's one food you can't live without?
Sushi.
That's awesome. What's one city that you haven't been to, but you'd like to visit someday?
Oh, New York, definitely.
New York City?
Yes.
Is there anything in particular that you'd love to do in New York?
I just want to walk around. Like, I just want to walk around everywhere and like literally see everything. And I want to get a bagel from a New York deli. I love bagels and cream cheese, and I know they do it so well.
I have heard that. What's your favorite genre of music?
Probably like hip hop or R&B.
Very cool. You have like a favorite go-to song you like to listen to, maybe when you're writing your story or just working out? I don't know, anything like that?
I don't know, maybe not a song, but I really like J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. Those are like my top two.
Very cool. First sporting event you ever attended?
Like professional?
Yeah, let's go professional.
Okay. I went to the first one I can remember. I went to a Steelers Vikings game when I was like 10 or 12 in Pittsburgh. And that's actually the only time I've been to Heinz Field. I've seen other Steeler games, other places, but that's like probably still the most memorable because Brett Favre was still playing. So I was I was young. So that was definitely cool to see.
Nice. If you could describe your writing style using just one word, what word would that be?
Ooh, I would say anecdotal.
I love that. What are your 3 favorite hobbies to do that are not sports related?
I would say sleeping. Um, Probably just like being with friends and probably watching The Bachelor, which is so bad, I know, but I'm addicted to it. And Love Island. If you haven't watched Love Island, you should watch it.
That's awesome. I definitely will give that a look. A couple more for you here. Let's see. Trying to think. Favorite social media platform?
Twitter.
Okay, cool. Favorite quote?
I don't think I have one. I don't love quotes. I don't love quotes.
Not a fan of quotes?
No.
It's all good. We'll say you pass them out.
Okay.
Yeah. Last one here. What's one fun fact that a lot of people do not know about Gabby Hajduk?
Ooh, I can juggle. And
Really?
my roommate always makes fun of me for this. I taught myself how to juggle because I was scared I would never have a talent. And so I wanted to at least have one talent. And so I taught myself how to juggle.
That's awesome. Like, what do you like juggle with? Is it like
I can really only juggle like circular things. Like
okay.
I can't juggle like the like knives on fire.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, if you could juggle that, that'd be pretty insane.
I should work up to that though. That's what I'm gonna start doing. I'm gonna start juggling other things.
Yeah, that's awesome. You could be a sports writer, then also be the halftime entertainment at
Yes,
a game.
you know what? You're right. Make a little extra cash.
Exactly. That would be awesome. All right, Gabby. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast today. Pleasure having you on. I mean, you've done some incredible things already. Just keep up the great work. I already know you're going to go far, so just stay at it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
All right, fellas, that was a sports student interview with Gabby Hajduk. Another big shout out to Gabby for coming on the podcast today. She was an absolutely fantastic guest to have on. I cannot wait to see all the incredible things that she does in the sports media industry down the line. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on those post notifications so you don't miss a single new episode of a sports student interview. But that'll do it for today's podcast, and I will see you guys in my next one. All right, y'all, take care. Sports student, signing out. Peace.